Are you ready to get casual? Grab your favorite adult beverage or combustible plant and join us for our roundtable TTRPG discussion. Oh yeah, it's time for Casual Friday. And now, here are your hosts.
You all are getting too comfortable, so it's Tuesday now. What? Hey, Nacho. We made it. We're talking Critical Role, and it's going to be. I'm excited. I'm still feeling it. I'm ready to, I don't know, run out of the 4 hours to squeeze into my hectic life. But 3 episodes into an overture, I'm feeling pretty awesome about the whole thing. How are you doing, Jim?
I am doing good, Ryan. Hey, Nacho, I don't know what you do for work, but this is more important than whatever's going on in your job. So move that screen front and center, please. Hey, Twin Steel, how you doing? We're talking about Campaign 4, Episode 3, Critical Role. Once again, we're back at you with a very special episode of Casual Friday, not on a Friday. Casual Friday on Tuesday. I hope those drumming boys get away from Strahd. He's a bad influence.
He is. He's up to no good. So yeah, we are still in the midst of an overture, which means we have entirely too many people to sit at one table. They're coming, they're going. I'm getting dizzy. The logistics, the management of it all impresses me at some points because they don't even know what's going on at any given moment. They're like, I forgot my iPad. Or Sam made a joke about the writers not being able to get to the teleprompters quick enough because they don't know who's actually going to be reading them, which is always fun for me. And we saw, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think at the end of this one, we saw the first group break out. We are aware what one of these three tables is going to be. And I've got theories about the other two, but let's start at the beginning. They're doing cold opens, which I like, I think, so far. And we met another of Wikander's definitely evil family sitting there with Tayar sending him out to
The
get
hell of our family contains multitudes.
and I forget actually Uncle's name, but he had two dogs, Wrath and Judgment, who he couldn't tell apart.
Yeah, I like the Dispel dogs have been featured a couple times now. I feel like that's going to be an important part of something coming up in the future because he's called a lot of attention to the Dispel dogs.
There are a lot of people out there including Wizards of the Coast, trying to make marshals cooler because there's a marshal caster disparity in 5e and a smaller gap, but still significant in 5e 2024. And this is why we have weapon mastery now. The other way to balance the scales is to go after those casters. And we've got anti-magic dogs. We've got very robust seeming draconian criminal code about what you can do with arcane magic and what you can't. It's going to be interesting how things play out in a world where magic is not the Swiss Army knife solution to all things.
And just as an aside, I would argue that the martial caster disparity is largely a myth. Not nearly as
Ooh.
sensational a divide as the internet would have you believe.
No, the internet would have you believe rogues are bad. So I ignore most of what people are complaining about, at least on Reddit. There was this really kind of perfectly D&D moment where Matt and Travis like pass each other in the street. They're like sniffing each other out and trying to feel like, okay, are we like they had a scene together, but it didn't really go anywhere. And they're like, okay, see ya. And they just like walk past each other, which served the story well. But I've also seen that happen where it's just like, okay, like, well, there's a ton of potential that could happen here, but not much does.
Yeah,
And scene.
I didn't know if Brennan's intention was that for Julian to follow Taor and become a part of that scene. Who knows? There were a few moments like this. Like later on, we'll see Abria just decided to nope herself out of a scene. Like 2 minutes after sitting down at the table, and that had big ramifications later in the episode. But yeah, so because we didn't know who any of the tables were yet, I'm watching this. I'm like, are these two pairing off so they can establish a relationship before, yeah, so that was interesting putting the two of them together. But Matt's Julian Devernos is kind of a wild card so far. Like, don't really know what he's going to do from one moment to the next.
No, and it's riveting. I don't know if it would be as riveting if it wasn't Mercer piloting the ship, but it's like, what's Matt gonna do? Oh, be awful. I'm here for it. He's playing a bad guy. With a heart of gold, maybe, but also maybe not. You keep like he gives you little like winks and nods, like, "Oh, I'm not all bad." It's like, but he's also still pretty crappy. Um,
So the plot purpose of this first scene in the cold open is to send Tayor off to his death because
hmm.
he's made contact with the Halavar family. They realize that he knows way too much, and so they send him off to a place where he'll be taken care of. And then that's the hard cliffhanger. Is like, and Brandon's doing this thing now where he says, and we'll find out what happens to X in this episode of Critical Role.
And it's very satisfying that the payoffs that he's setting up really pay off, right? Like that cold open ends with a cliffhanger. You know he's walking into trouble there. And when we return to that scene, it's so much worse than anything I could have imagined. It was
Yep.
um, brilliant. But before we get there, we get the payoff from the last cliffhanger. We've already seen Grandpa in the Iron Maiden getting bled out for. It's not his blood, because do angels have blood? It's also his saliva. Whatever biological goo comes out when you milk an angelic being, they're using to power their evil empire. And Grandma like lays it down, and Sam is just portraying this fascinating character. I love every minute of him on screen because he's just the anti-hero, and usually the anti-hero people try to play like this edge lord kind of tough guy. He's the anti-hero because he has very little leverage or power or understanding. He's just like
Mm,
doesn't have the tools to be heroic yet, and you can see like, okay, it's a setup, but
yeah. Speaking of Sam, the only thing I wrote down in my notes about the announcement section was Sam's crotch because
mm,
that was the highlight. I don't know if you skipped past the announcements, but there was
I
Sam.
do. I'll admit it.
Sam did a very crotch forward leotard
Mm.
ensemble in his announcement, and yeah, everybody was talking about it. It was memorable.
Was it a cube? Do you have the box in there?
I don't
Are
think
we still doing that?
I don't know. I don't know what he had in there, but after the after the announcements, yeah, then we go back to Wickander and Tyranny, just where they left them at the end of the second episode, which is they've just learned that Granddad is a celestial who's tied up and is being milked for filament, whatever his life force, and Grandpa's not into it. It's apparently horrible. Grandpa does not like it.
In a world where the gods have been killed, all the celestials have become maddened murder machines. I don't know how Yanessa Halavar got this guy in a box, but she used his essence, this filament that they are now trafficking in, to make a wish spell. I don't know if we're talking ninth level D&D mechanics here, but that means she's packing heat. Don't sleep on Grandma, first of all. Um, Second of all, okay, that explains the logistics of conception of Wick's father, who I was really hoping he was Cyclops. Turns out it's just an Asimar.
Yeah. The long scene with Inessa I found was very informative because we've hers is the first perspective of someone who said, you know, the Shapers War did a lot of bad stuff too. There were a lot of negative consequences from the Shapers War, and that's sort of her family's perspective. She said she confirmed his powers come from the blood in your veins, not devotion to a deity. Which speaking of is Wick Tyranny's patron?
Very interesting.
I'm getting
Maybe
like
she had.
getting like a scene ahead of ourselves, but I don't know.
Well, it's all whatever they're on screen. You're like, what is their deal? Because they're both so complex, and some of the best actors at the table in a stacked group of thespians.
Yeah.
But yeah, this idea that this family were obviously, benefiting from being the elite priests, but they were serving the sun god, who presumably, I don't know much about this Tolkien-esque world, but like the human god of light traditionally is a pretty good dude, right? Like lawful good. So they were apparently one of two families who were like high up in the ranks of serving this god, and they're kind of not super stoked about that god getting got. And yeah, consider the source here, but she's telling us that the world is bad, and we've heard plenty of corroborating evidence so far. We haven't left this city of Dolmakir yet, but it sounds bad out there. It sounds real bad out there.
Yeah, and Yanessa is trying to pitch Wick on this idea of faith as a social need.
Hmm.
As like the people have to have this, and then she used this analogy of like a magical pond, where it's like if everybody comes and drinks from the pond, it's all going to be gone. So what do? You have to set up a rule how it's not okay to drink from the pond, and then that means you can still drink from the pond, and it won't ever run out. But then everyone else knows they can't, and then you can essentially that's how a religion forms. Is you form a religion around we don't drink from the pond. That's our central value. And essentially, it's just a grift to be able to drink from the pond whenever you want.
It's incredible. Brendan Lee Mulligan is so good at framing the evil plot in a perfectly reasonable way. And he turns to the camera pretty quickly after this. I think there's like during a scene change, or maybe he runs to the bathroom or something, but he points at the camera and says, "You can't prove this is an allegory." Which
Yeah.
brought me so much joy, because clearly it's not, you don't need a lot of string to connect what's happening
Yeah.
here to what's happening in the real world. But then, yes, tyranny, as she has repeatedly in only a few hours of game time, removes Wickander from a situation where he potentially doesn't understand what kind of stakes there are or danger he's in or his position, to run him a bath. And she comes clean. When we have like Sam kind of reveals that even though he was like yes, yes, yes to grandma and the family business, and yes, of course, he was the good son, he isn't necessarily 100% on board with being the evil priestly king of this place. But we find out that tyranny has known the whole time and is 6 months old, or not 6 months old, but she got this body
Hmm.
6 months ago, which is a very interesting way of phrasing that. Um, and yeah, I just the two of them, they are potentially my favorite scene partners. I really enjoy every moment. Whitney was an unknown entity to me when she first showed up, and like, I'm the scamp, goofy tiefling, and I'm drunk. 2 minutes into this episode, I was like, oh boy, this might get old, and she may be my favorite. I was wrong.
Oh, Yeah, so we learn that she's bound to him by a contract that was signed 6 months ago, that her maker is receiving filament from the Halovars in exchange for these little demon servants. And she said that he had the power to send her back. So
Hmm.
either he is her patron, or she's like some kind of summoned, permanently summoned creature, right? So I wonder if she dies, if she fails 3 death saves, if she goes, or if she drops to 0 HP, does she go to some other dimension?
There is so much about death in the plot of this
Mm,
story. I mean, opening with a funeral is great for a lot of reasons. We talked about it with Brad, who suggested doing that a long time ago in an episode with me. And it's a great setup to get everybody together and like high emotion, but it's also very much setting the theme. And more as we go through this episode too, we see that like what happens after you die in a world where you've killed the gods is an open-ended question that Thiazi, who is deceased, was collecting these relics, perhaps had a theory or a plan or was studying them or something. There's definitely that thread. So we've also been told outside of game that this will potentially be very deadly. We saw a character get introduced by making death saves. We saw that same character and several others almost wipe because they couldn't roll above a 10 this episode in a bit. And Brennan has several times said like he's not pulling punches, have a second character loaded up, a man after my own heart. The stakes are real here, but Tyranny being a demon who is occupying a body, it seems. And maybe, Tayar was on his way to be occupied as well. I don't know, speculation, but like that's potentially the process here. If she dies, does she just return to the pit, which means she can come back? Like she's the one soul in this mix that has a route to go to. Everybody else is kind of
mm.
stuck in this limbo potentially. So it's interesting. She also named drop Charvi. I didn't look up the spelling or whatever, but the High Priest of Demonkind and the Shadow of Suffering, which good work on the titles.
Mm. So then after the bath scene, we move over to the Pentaveral, where we see Murray, as that last cliffhanger. She had just met Primus Taconis. Murray's at her mage's college. And then I wrote in my notes, Mouthy Murray almost gets herself murked. Because she goes full, like, full, if this were not a professional D&D table, if I saw this at the table, I'd be like, okay, this is an ego battle right here. This is player
Yes.
versus dungeon master. This is some personal stuff. But I mean, these are professionals, so like they know what they're doing. But like Marisha went pretty hard in that scene, mouthing off to someone who's like one of the most respected people in the town. She said F you to his face. And we learned in the cooldown only avoided dying because she passed a save.
That was I think they established it was like a powerful like an upcast bestow curse, but it was like major badness. It's like if you fail this, you just don't act if you fail a pretty high DC wisdom save. For the next 24 hours, every time you try to do a thing, you have to make a save to move, to act. This guy's name is Lord Primus, right? And in my heart of hearts, I hope that's just a Les Claypool reference, but the guy's name is number one bad guy. If you didn't know he was bad by the foreshadowing by his son, and if death is the main theme being depicted here, then like the next one is probably daddy issues. So big bad daddy here. Yeah, almost got her, and I actually thought about it because I can't help but like put myself in the position sometimes of like, okay, if this was going on in our table, like how would this feel? Because that got heated. Murray just had a bad day. She
Mm,
heard her whatever, the dean, who's clearly like her friend and confidant, is getting got. The institution that she has thrown herself upon. It seems like maybe the dwarves place is not a good place to be anymore. I don't know, but she's a dwarf in at the city of the Black Gate, right? She's in Orktown, and okay, it's a cosmopolitan center now, but this is her spot. She hasn't come from privilege. She's got the bejeweled grill, right, which she thinks is classy, but he clearly doesn't.
mm-hmm.
So there is a class struggle here, which Brendan is always willing to lean into. Um, and she's got this like Appalachian dialect. There's a like she's from the hills, literally and figuratively or fantastically. So there's a lot of play in that scene, like in the subtext. But whew, the things you can do with trust and the things that people try to do before that trust is established could be a whole episode in and of itself. Like that's the thing. People come out and take big swings with strangers thinking they're playing Critical Role. And yeah, it can go bad if you don't have these relationships established and this like baseline trust established first.
And then we got an interesting twist at the end of that scene where Murray makes an insight check on her on the dean who's on his way out, who she thought was her only ally at the school.
Mm.
He he deceives Primus. She makes a bad insight check, and she thinks that she's being betrayed, which is very interesting because Marisha knows what's going on, but her character thinks that her best friend, her only friend at the Mages College, has thrown his lot over with the enemy now.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. I love a consequential natural one. Brendan's always making the dice count. And again, you called it. We're getting there, but you called it. Last episode, in the first episode, they were rolling hot. There were a lot of 20s going around, and you were like, well, it's gonna swing the other way. And it did, because we got to the I don't know, third or fourth cliffhanger we got last episode, where the fight's going to break out in the not the rookery, the crow keeper's spot, which is not the rookery, because everything is birds, because Brendan's in charge. Um, but yeah, they're talking to the Thieves Guild, and it goes pretty sideways, pretty fast for them. It seemed.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that Brennan, he went, he was like, I'm gonna go get our first map, and everyone's like, yay, first map, and there's a lot of rabble at the table, and it takes a couple minutes for him to set things up, and then he's getting minis and doing whatever, and it's like, he's clearly not used to this, so it takes longer than Matt Mercer, who's like, pew, 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 in the things all set up. Then as soon as they got it set up, I think it was Laura Bailey Thimble tried to make an intimidate check to basically
Mhm.
end the combat, and you could see on his face, he's like, I just got done setting it up. So he sets the intimidate check at a DC 20.
Every dungeon master's been there, because it's a couple of things. One, like, you're ready, you put a lot of work into this set piece battle. Even though they're only level 3 and this is the first fight, but like he's got a lot riding on this. And she made a persuasion check and it failed, and you go into initiative. So if it was not cut and in a different episode, a different session, like I would be like, we already did that. No, probably. So like that might have been part of his mental math too, of like, you've opened your mouth and made it a fight. Now trying to take this guy who's about to snatch you in a burlap sack because you're a 4-inch Tinkerbell, holding his nuts hostage with a needle, is maybe not going to make the situation better. But yeah, sure, I'll let you roll for it.
It reminded me of a moment in, I can't remember if it was campaign 1, which I haven't seen a whole lot of campaign 1, or maybe it was early in campaign 2, where they were they were at sea, and Matt had handed out like stat blocks for all different ships and stuff, and he's clearly very excited about it. And then Sam did some like a thunder wave or something. He did something to cause the enemy ship to capsize, and the combat was just over. And you could see Matt was devastated. And everyone was like, "Oh no, no, Matt, do we ruin it?" He's like, "Nope, it's fine." They made a big deal about it, which made him have to comment on it. He would have just probably they would have just moved on. It would have been fine. But they were like, "Oh, Matt, do you want us to undo it?" And he was like, "Nope." And they were like, "How long did it take you to make these stats?" He was like, "Oh, it was like an hour."
I just
And
made a naval combat mini game. No big deal.
poor guy.
And we all have been there. Or if you
Yeah,
haven't, hang
sure.
in there because you will be. Just like, okay, I guess we're not doing that. Fine, great.
So a fight breaks out when they're very much surrounded by crow keepers. And at first, when you see the map, it's hard to tell how many of them there are until, some bad rolls and it becomes their turn. And he's like, 6 guys are going to sneak attack you right now. That's what's about to happen. And they come in and they just wail away. And then fortunately, just in the nick of time, Valus comes crashing through. Ashley Johnson's character comes crashing through the window, pulp action hero style, which is very much Brendan Lee Mulligan's bag.
Mm.
She comes crashing through the window, swinging her censer, which they've described as a whip. But the last paladin I played, I had a censer that was like that. It did an extra D8 of damage, and it had healing abilities. I don't know if that's the same thing that she has. But Ashley comes through. She kicks some ass. She gets a crit. She kills one person the first round. Second round kills another person. Tells everyone whoosh, whoosh, while she's swinging it, run. And everyone bolts. And Ashley Johnson's Valus is my favorite character, and I
Mm.
really hope she continues to lean into the weird elf stuff, like the really otherworldly elf stuff. I hope she leans further into it, into being unknowable and strange and a mysterious, pointy-eared assassin.
I love that. I mean, I cut my teeth on Tolkien as a young boy, and like elves are from a different place entirely. Like, oh my god, it's an elf. What? Like, I didn't know you guys were real. I thought you were just a story. That's my bag. I really like that, and it's such a fun contrast with you know uh cute, scared Ashley and this like dark, just uh, I don't know. She's a paladin, and she's got like I don't know if she's. I think we're seeing like custom subclasses for most of these characters. At the end of the day, if I had to guess,
Probably.
we still haven't really gotten much by way of tea leaves on what they're doing. But her guiding bolt used to be, the green mother, this elf shaper, goddess of nature, who is now dead. So her magic is described as like dark and corrupt. And ooh, it's dope. If Poison Ivy was at a funeral, that's what it's giving.
uh, so they kept one bad guy from fleeing, who provided them with a bunch of information. Namely, they were there to find. They're looking for Casimir and Sid.
Hmm.
Tayor's brother Sid, and Casimir, who's just some mercenary buddy of theirs from back in the day. Uh, and Casimir and Sid were both in on the failed attempt to rescue Thiazi, and both of them had been MIA since then. So they knew that there was a mole in the organization, and so they suspected pretty strongly. Everyone did from the jump that it was one of those two, because they were the only ones who didn't make it back to the rendezvous spot after the failed thing. And then they find out that Casimir's gone. Casimir owed a bunch of money to the Crow Keepers, he had his own little like subgroup, his own little crew in the Crow Keepers who were loyal to him, who weren't necessarily aligned with the rest of the Crow Keepers. And he had been skimming money. I guess he was supposed to, like you have your rackets, then you kick up, but he was skimming off the top before he was kicking up. And he was on the gibbet. There's a list of people who owe the Crow Keepers money, which Valus took, which that was kind of, you can see Brennan didn't expect that. Valus took the gibbet, so she has this list of people who owe the Crow Keepers money. It was a little weird. And they also said that, so it appears that Casimir ripped off Thimble's hideout.
Mm-hmm.
Because he showed up at the Crow Keepers with a bunch of loot. Sid ran in and took one piece of loot, which was a deed to a house or a deed to something.
It was kind of implied, and then more expressly like developed later in this episode, that Kaz sold Thiazi's stuff and came back in to pay off his debts with that earning from the take. He didn't just like show up with Thiazi's stuff, because Thiazi had the Stone of Night Song, which is why Valus is here in the first place, and Kaz stole it and now sold it to question mark. We have clues later in the episode about where that might be, and he has a deed, so clearly it's like,
oh, don't we find out pretty definitively who has it at the end of the episode?
I think it's like 90. It seems pretty clear that like, okay, so
we'll get to that.
Sold it to the, okay, cool. I think it was like left open. I think maybe because the characters don't know, but it is known as maybe the divide there. But yeah, Kaz has a deed to a plot of land up north somewhere, and like a stronghold or something, not just like a plot of land out in the wilderness. He has like a chalet or something now to go to, and Sid, who was supposed to be in the wagon with him picking up Thiazi from the attempted, that became successful, public execution. Sid runs in, having figured out that Kaz is the guy, grabs that title, and runs away. And that's the last we've heard of either of their whereabouts. Sid being Tayor's brother.
There was one NPC in the episode, and I can't remember. Was it Sid who Brendan described as his day job was installing secret compartments on wagons?
I think that was Kaz. I think Kaz is like the smuggler, and then he got brought in because he was the driver. But he was also in the cold open last episode. He was in the Falconers Rebellion and saves Thiazi's bacon, and that was a flashback to however long ago. But he was in the mix. But he was in the Crow Keepers. He was like the bootlegger guy. He was the driver. He got the wagon. He was the one putting like secret compartments to like whatever, move arcane goods around. Or it seems like there's a big criminal underworld here.
It just seemed like when it said it, I don't know, maybe not. I said it was his day job, but it was like his role on the team. I was like, what a great D&D heist position. Member of the team, you got to have the guy who can install the secret compartments on the wagon. Like, what a great D&D job for someone to have. Like, I customize wagons for people. And if you pass a little coin under the table, I might put some special compartments where that people might not be able to find. Wink, wink.
Yeah, I like it. How are you trafficking your insert fantasy drug? You know, your filament. Oh, we also, to loop back a tiny bit, we found out that Wix is betrothed to someone in order to get access to these vineyards so they could cut the filament with wine, whatever. Like, there's an arranged marriage going on. So I'm almost certain that will come up eventually again.
I missed that part.
Yeah, it was like kind of a throwaway, but he has like I don't know if they're engaged so much, but like Yanessa explains, like, yeah, you're going to go marry this woman to get access to her family's wine business because somehow the grapes are infused with, I don't know, face stuff maybe, and that like cuts the filament. It makes it go further. So it all felt very druggy to me.
Wick is fascinating to me because of who's playing him mostly. Because
Hmm.
I know Sam's history that he loves to play characters who have a big secret or have some kind of giant metamorphosis that it just feels kind of. I could see Sam telling Brennan like, I want my character to have some kind of big twist or change, and I don't want to know what it is. I don't want to
Mm.
see it coming. Just you hit me with it. And Brennan doing it right away and being like, "Yep, your whole life is actually a lie." Because I mean, I don't know. Sam's an actor, but his reactions seem pretty genuine to me. He seems pretty shocked with a lot of the developments that were happening within his family.
Yes. And either way, it's incredible. But it does feel genuine in some aspects of like that the end of that last episode where he's like, "What?" Like freaking out. Um yeah, I think he has an outline and Brendan put meat on the bones and like, "Oh god, is it terrible meat?" um should we cut to the hollowed round was next. If
Yeah,
we're
we
ready
had the
to move
break,
on.
then we had the hollow round, and honestly, I was kind of checked out during a lot of this scene.
Some more. It was very world buildy to a degree. This is the place where, um, as good Asgar as the orc god would like come down to the orcs from the sky and like they would. See, it sounds like a fighting pit. The way to describe this amphitheater. I don't know what you do to praise Sauron, but this is where the orcs would do it. And for the last 70, 80 years since that guy got, or since they declared war on him, at least, this place has been walked away from. This place was hollowed ground to the god that they killed. They didn't come here anymore. It was overgrown. Hal, it seems, has been petitioning for a long time to get it reinstated as like something that they can use and is now in the midst of renovating it. There's a much ado about the gift shop and all the little jokey things that they were at the concession stand and the fruit leather, which seems like it'll be a running gag now. Um, and Bolaire shows up to deliver this mysterious
The
paint,
paint.
which we keep
Yep.
we keep hearing about. It's magical. We've no idea what it's doing yet, but there's a lot of it. There's a
Yeah,
lot of this stuff.
there was a pretty extended investigation sequence where people were making rolls to try to understand it, and Brennan gave that kind of dungeon master code for you're too low level, where
Mm.
he said, this is some kind of magic you've never seen before, which is code for, ask me again when you're level 5.
And I do like we haven't gotten a lot of Bolaire screen time
Yeah.
and a lot of like what's his deal, but I like what I've seen so far. Taliesin can, by being withholding or like trying too hard to be cool, could sometimes like rub me the wrong way. But like, woof, am I loving this guy so far? Um, I think the problem is Caduceus was the dude, and that has set the bar so
Mm.
high for me that like everything else that he touches is gonna be like, you could just be playing Big Lebowski right now, and it would be so much better, bro. Uh,
Yeah, Caduceus was great. There was a character they mentioned in that scene who I haven't been able to figure out who that is. Algar?
Algar
Alogar?
is
Alogar?
Taisha's son, and we don't. I don't know.
Oh.
Is it with Hal or what? Like I don't know how many kids they have, but I know I could be mistaken. But Algar, whatever, that his so it's either his sister, maybe half sister, expresses concern about him. He's the one that Julian has as like a ward or a student or a trainee, right? Like I'm surprised we haven't heard more about him, but Taisha asks Julian about him episode 1, and that's the main mention we've had so far. And he's a good student. He's good with the sword. He's, in training. Why he's with Julian or the Divinos or the Royces, I don't know. Is it like a polite hostage situation because of the Falconers' rebellion? Maybe, but it seems like we haven't heard much else about that. Everybody else seems to be walking around with nothing hanging over their heads. So
Like
I
a
think he's just in training. I don't know.
like a ward situation, like how Theon Greyjoy was given to the Starks to raise, essentially as
Exactly.
like, we'll give you our kid and we won't go to war.
Exactly. Which makes me think, is he Theoz? I don't know. It's all, I'm not sure yet. It's the whole polyculeness of the orc relationships makes it a little harder to figure out what line goes where.
Yeah.
At least for me. Because there's concern there. It doesn't feel like when Taisha said it, Taisha hates her. She's mama bearing too much. It's getting a little one notey for me, but we'll see what happens. She's just always angry at somebody for something. Um, just me? I don't know.
Facts. No,
Uh,
you're right.
okay. uh, but now to have it like seconded by an NPC by the daughter, who you know, Brennan has brought a lot of commentary and wisdom through in many campaigns, but even in this one so far, it seems like she knows what's going on to a degree. She has a bead on people. So if she's concerned, okay, something's concerning about his situation. We're worried about him, and we haven't. I mean, we get a lot of Julie in this episode, and none of the kids. So I don't know what the deal is there.
Yeah. Well, then moving on to the next scene at the couturier, which is a word I had to look up,
Hmm.
which means it's like a combination tailor and clothing designer. It's like you get your clothes from the person who actually makes it, so they customize, which is not a thing. I'm not a never visited a couturier in my life.
Most of my fashion knowledge, like the reason I think it's the same root as couture, and I know that not because I'm into fashion, but because I'm into drag, and they're into fashion.
Transitive property.
Yeah, emphasis on trans.
Did
Um,
you watch Dungeons and Drag Queens on Dimension 20?
I watched the first two episodes because Bob the drag queen is like one of my favorites. It's a
Bob's
big
great.
roster. Bob is incredible.
Yeah, the episodes 3 and 4, it's worth it. I noped out on season 2. I lost interest, but the whole first season's pretty good. Anyway, at the couturier, so Tayor goes in. Travis knows what's up, but Tayor doesn't. He gets hold
Hmm.
personed. Then time passes, and we don't know what happens to him. But then Wick and Tyranny show up, because we knew they knew. Now, I wrote this in my notes that the way Brennan drops characters into scenes is almost Blades in the Dark like,
Hmm.
because Wick and Tyranny knew that Tayor was headed to danger. That had been established before when Anessa was like, "Don't worry, I took care of it," and then they feel like he's in danger. So then there could have been a planning scene. We got to go rescue Tayor. Then there could have been a travel scene where they go to rescue Tayor, but Brennan just skips those two scenes and just drops them right outside. Says, like, this is where you were headed anyway. It's like that Blades in the Dark thing of like, we're not going to plan the heist. You start right outside the heist, and we'll go back in time if we need. Which you do in Blades, but you don't really do in D&D. They didn't do that in this scene, but Brennan was just like, skip the stuff that we know where it's going to end up anyway.
I find that so inspiring. It might be the piece of paper I threw for the gag, but in one of the cooldowns, he said it's an improv like precept of like get to the story, get to the interesting bit. If you know it's coming, just like get there as fast as possible because the cool stuff comes afterwards. And I so often, as a dungeon master, will I won't stop the scene until the players are done with it, which feels polite because I have so
Mm-hmm.
much control that I have to use it judiciously. But that means it it's falling in momentum before I pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas he's just, I don't know if you guys play taps in elementary school, but just like, oh my God, it's the action stays up the whole time because he's not waiting for things to taper off and get less interesting. He's going to the most interesting. If he's saying something, it's to move things forward, and he's not leaving a lot of gaps, which is interesting because coming into this, one of the things we've talked about a couple times is how different is this going to be unedited. We've seen Dimension 20. We don't know what's happening when we don't see what's going on screen. I am never bored in a 4
Right.
hour stretch. I'm distracted. There's other things going on. It's hard to give my attention fully to anything because the internet has ruined that for all of us. But damn, it's just masterful, and it doesn't flag 4 hours and 40 minutes this episode was. Like, it's deeply inspiring, and I'm going to carefully try to emulate that more at my tables, I think. No, I
It's
know.
it's hard it's hard to know where that line is where you know at a certain point it's the right thing to do to interrupt a scene if it's
Mm.
flagging, but it is hard to know where there's that line between like pushing things forward and being rude, or not wanting to be rude at all and letting everyone at the table get bored because no one's gonna flip the switch to push the scene forward.
Yeah, and there's 13 people who are all pushing the scene forward, and he's still coming in, like never letting it flag. And I so often like am waiting for it to flag
Yeah.
to interject. So yeah, maybe I'm gonna stop doing that. Just the setup. These two are my favorite. Like, she's telling him how it is because Wix has no idea, and he's Dunning Kruger so far up his own butt that he doesn't even know what he doesn't know. And then he's like, go in first and
Announce
announce
me.
me. And it brings the table down. It's just, you're so stupid and pompous at the same time. It's adorable somehow. It's a neat
Yeah,
trick.
this as Tyranny and Wick try to go get Taor back before he's well, we don't know exactly what was going to happen to him. But yeah, it's finally we get like a real comedy scene. The first one in these three episodes, and the comedy is mostly from Sam. It's mostly his, just complete ignorance at the gravity of the situation that he's in. But Taor apparently we found was taken down to some dank cell where they had shears and they were cutting away bits of his shadow, which they don't ever say exactly what would have happened if they'd finished. But one of them said, "You would have had quite a rise come sun, or quite a you would have had quite a ride come sunrise. Come sunrise," is what he said. I don't know. There's the old Faye thing about if you cut off someone's shadow, they lose their soul. But I don't know what that would have to do with sunrise. But we didn't we didn't find out Tayor's fate because Wick was able to essentially, out of ignorance, use his station to get him released. And it was kind of a weird scene because Brennan brought out a bunch of people who he didn't. I assumed he was going to try to integrate them into the scene, but it just didn't happen. There's like I noticed Abria got really fidgety. But it's like she was sitting there for 45 minutes with nothing to do, so that wasn't really her fault. But like clearly the scene didn't go the way Brendan intended because there were a bunch of people who had nothing to do for like an hour until he eventually changed to a different scene.
Well, he was doing. I think maybe he was like preloading, so they didn't have those transitions. Maybe because he was gonna like, because eventually he gets to all of them. Because you had Murray and Azune meeting. Was that before this or after this? But they were meeting like in that neighborhood in like the market shops. Like, I didn't see you at the funeral. I was like, oh well, I showed up late. It's like, well, I was on time. Like, come on. Perfect paladin to whatever holler punk wizard interaction. Uh, but the whole Are we doing Peter Pan? I mean, Tinkerbell's here. We're cutting off shadows. I haven't seen Captain Hook yet, but maybe that's Tayor. I mean, not Tayor. Maybe that's the Ozzy. I don't know. It's just you put a little Tinkerbell in front of me. Now I'm looking for connections to make it more Peter Pan-y, and cutting off shadows is one of them.
Mm.
Is this the process that whoever used to be Tyranny went through? That's my question.
Oh.
Because Tyranny's had this body for 6 months, like, and these guys are soulless vessels occupied by some demonic force. They wear these wigs to cover up the back of their skull is blown out. I don't know. They clearly went through a different, less fashiony process to get possessed by demons. Is there, and they knew Tyranny. Like, has she been here before? Is this where she came from? How often does this go down? Lots of questions.
Yeah, I don't know. The scene ends with Taora successfully leaving. Later, everyone is assembling at Julian's home. Or not Julian's home, at Hal's home. Hal and the Halovars, Sid and Cat. There's too many names that are similar across all this. Like
Yes.
Hal and Halovars. Wait, they shouldn't have. They should have caught that. They should have caught that in the second draft. That's what the second draft is for, to catch stuff like that. Halavar, too confusing. Like, you wouldn't have a character named Bob who has a friend named Bobby. That would be way too confusing. But so everyone meets at Hal's home. You were about to say?
I think like Hal's name we know is something else, right? Like it's Hal for short. So maybe like
Hallandil.
Hallandil, which is, yeah, it's very Tolkien-y. It's still pretty close to Halavar, though. Halo, because it's Halo in his head, and he's like, I can't call it Halo because that's 2 on the nose. So like Hallow, I don't know. You get to you take different roads to get there, and then you're like, these are very different in my brain, and then you start saying stuff out loud. I've been in that position where it's like, oh yeah, that is exactly the same, huh? Whoops. I'll explain my reasoning, but it won't help.
Thimble meets Julian for the first time, or the first time since the Ozzy's death. Matt is still full antagonizing. He is still Matt's really going for this. I figured out what the comparison was. It's a romance novel trope. He's going for the hot Byronic jerk in need of redemption. Because you could see it you saw it in the first scene after the funeral, where he wakes up in a brothel and he's got naked limbs draped over him. It's like, that's full on romance novel trope of the guy who's out womanizing when really the love he needs is back home. So, and I appreciated it, that full Byronic hero, that like tragic hero, staring at the skull, like full on Hamlet mode. And it's working for me. I think it's working for me.
I can fix him.
I sure hope this doesn't awaken anything in me. But so now we know that, and Valus knows that the Stone of Night song is fully in the wind, because like the people who took it from the people now gave it to some other people. So now like it's too far removed. And so like we can't just keep chasing the people who we thought had it. And then Taconis is a death-focused house. They spent a long time talking about Octus's familiar, which I thought was weird when it happened, but afterward I was like, oh no, I think that's probably maybe a way to try to connect Ashley and Alex's characters together.
The whole like kind of dead thing love. We also learned Pin is Pin Cushion, which is cute. Because I thought it was Pim this whole time. Pin Cushion, and yeah, it seemed like how is that character going to be integrated into one of these groups? And we saw that happening, and maybe it's a little hand wavy, I guess. But she's also she was a follower of the nature goddess. So this like foxy thing, this was her, I don't know, opening to that. A little bit later, she has a moment with a wolf. It seems like nature is her pathway back to like, okay, these people can't be all bad if they have if not friend, why friend shaped, right? Like,
Yeah, it seems like Ashley's her end to the campaign is going from I'm just here for the the night stone, whatever it is. That's all I care about, to her starting to realize, no, actually I have a stake in this world. I have a stake in what's happening here because of the elves' weird connection with death that we don't really know yet.
mm,
Um, so Julian and Octus chatted. Octus passed a deception check to make Julian believe that he was not involved in the Thjazi rescue plot, but he wanted him to go talk to Lady Aranessa. He was saying, "You're in danger,"
mm.
but he wouldn't really explain why. He was just saying, "Your family's looking for you. Let me take you to Lady Aranessa." Then we get to what I mentioned before, where Abria just noped herself out of a scene
Hmm.
when Taisha realizes that Octus has gone with Julian, and we know how Taisha feels about Julian. She just sprints off to go after them.
And I'm fuzzy on her relationship with Octus. Like they showed up together, and she's very protective of him, but I don't quite understand the dynamic there. He's he's a wizard school dropout necromancer. She's a practitioner of the old way, like the druid path. They got this halfling reliquary for Thiazi. I don't
Yeah,
know what their deal is.
we really know so little about Octus. You
Hmm.
know, all we really know is that he has turned against his house, and he was involved in the plot to rescue Thjazi. We don't really know why,
Hmm.
or how his relationship was with any of these people. He was involved in the plot, but that's really, he got more screen time in this episode, but he really didn't reveal anything.
No, and it's interesting because I feel like he's very much in character. Like I feel like I'm familiar with him. That like we've gotten to know him through the screen time because he's being portrayed very interestingly. But yeah, I have no idea what his deal is. He's like he's the you know fifth, sixth, seventh inheritor to like he's like the rich kid who got shipped away to boarding school. So like yeah, he's got a ton of privilege, but also like no one's ever paid attention or cared about him. So he's been like off on his own.
Yeah, he did reveal something a little bit later where he said that he was the eighth child in a family of
Mm,
sorcerers, and because he was so far down in the birth order, he didn't get any sorcerer's power.
that's so interesting. I missed that because like there's this whole like folkloric
Yeah.
mythology magic of like the seventh son of the seventh son is the one. You don't hear much about the eighth guy.
Yeah, and he didn't get, so that's why he's a wizard, because he didn't get any magic. And I thought
Mm,
that's some fun tragic backstory right there, like talk about competing with his brothers and sisters, that they are all innately magical and he just grew up a muggle.
yeah. Ooh, right in the heartstrings. Oh, I feel for him.
But in the previous scene where we were live, so Abria leaves, Teor returns, and so now basically all the pro-Thjazi people are in one place because Wick has essentially turned against his house. Wick has, said, I'm not with them, so now everyone there is the pro-Thjazi gang. We know Sid stole a deed to a stronghold, and now there are multiple PCs who all have various reasons to get out of the city together. Well, not together, but they all have reasons to get out of the city. Some just need to get gone. Some need to go find Kaz, and so this is the perfect time for them to team up and to say that they're going to go north. And also, once again, Liam gets a special sword, which I
Oh,
think is
it's so special. It's so special. The Liar's Blade. I'm really excited to see what that's all about.
He didn't get one in campaign 2 because he was a wizard, but I'm pretty sure in every campaign he's gotten a special sword now.
It's in his contract. Yeah, I'll play with you guys, but I need to be OP.
He's got dreams of like a line of plastic swords he's gonna sell at KB Toys.
Dagger.
But so then now we officially have our first full table, the soldiers table. We get Taylor the Paladin. What you're gonna say?
Well, you can give us the soldiers lineup, and I will explain the moment of confusion I had in this. Well, I don't know what I was doing, washing dishes or something, listening to this. I actually had to go back and watch this because I thought there was an extra member to the soldiers table.
So Tayor, who's a paladin, Thimble, who's a rogue, Wick, who's a cleric, ? Tyranny, who's a warlock, right? Or sorcerer. She's a warlock.
TBD. We know Wix is not a cleric, but he is labeled one. He's mislabeled as a cleric. Or maybe there's some weird subclass shenanigans that we don't know about.
Tyranny, though, is a warlock, right? Yeah.
I believe so. We haven't seen her do any classy stuff yet, I believe. So I'm prepared for everyone to be a lie.
Yeah, 505 Cadigan is a ranger. What did you miss?
Well, before this, like right around the time the Liar's Blade is introduced, Murray and Cadigan have this like some of the wittiest flirtation I've seen. They're both these like the lowest class people in the room, right? He sleeps outside. And she's like, how about you? What's your deal? And then it like goes to something else and she brings it back. She's like, you got my back. And he's like, oh, I got your back and your front and your sides. And I was like, woo, Robbie, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, this waking up something in me now. And I was so confused. I was like, Murray's going with these guys out of town because like this guy wants to kill her and she's like running away from the, like I thought Marisha was at that table. I was like, that's a lot of people too. That's like 6. The other tables are smaller. I legit had to like back it up to figure out if Murray was going with them or not. Also that goodbye scene with, I just think Liam and Laura clearly have this like brother-sister relationship above table, right? Like they played the twins, they have that connection. They're clearly like not going to participate in the same game of D&D for a stretch here. That everlasting bardic inspiration that he gives her on the way out was just a really good moment that Brennan like tied a bow on to really let it shine. I think that was nice. That's some peak D&D stuff right there where you're like, yeah, you broke the rules, but because it was good.
I think Murray and Julian will be at the same table. I think Matt and Marisha want to romance each other in a fantasy land.
We can get to predictions, but yeah, it isn't. I was curious to see if Travis and Laura were at the same table, and like Smart Money says yes, but also like if they're splitting their shooting schedule, maybe like childcare is easier. Like who knows? Like the logistics of real life creep into all of these choices here. And then Wix and Tyranny are clearly like coupled up, right? Like paired off, let's say. So like Cadigan's kind of like the odd man out in this group, and like, oh, we got a little bit more of him. And he's another one where it's like, all right, the drunken bum guy, like this could get old fast, and like, oh man, every time he opens his mouth, I'm happy. He had the steak, he had the raw cut of meat on his eye because he had a shiner, like leading into the fact that he got his butt kicked, and he's also like gnawing on it at the same time because he's just feral. Maybe he's the dog. Hard to say. He might. There's something weird about the connection with him and his wolf. I forget the wolf's name now. Shoot. Dang. But anyway, they clearly.
Nope, I don't have it. I don't got it.
I don't got it.
You know, with this many people in the cast now, you think Critical Role could probably offer on-site childcare? I mean, Brennan has a kid. They've got to have the money to hire a couple nannies to have on-site childcare.
expensive. I don't know what kind of benefit package. Yeah, they're in LA too. It's
Who
crazy
knows
out
what
there.
kind of extra insurance you need to have to do that. I'll bet the insurance is prohibitively expensive. Cadigan switches tables frequently. Well, that's one thing I think there with this. My prediction is a very staggered shooting schedule, which will allow for very frequent guest spots. Because we know that one table is now five, so that means that the other tables are almost certainly going to be 4 and 4. 5 and 3 would be weird.
Hmm.
But 4 and 4, Brennan pretty regularly DMs for 6 people on D20, so I think regular guest spots, people switching, borrowing people, trading people, I think that's going to be how they keep it fresh, is like people doing Marvel style cameos at other tables.
Valid. I do think. All right, we'll skip ahead to the projection time. I think we maybe saw the table split here, but maybe not. I don't know. So that moment when Bria noped out was the moment I was like, she's doing too much. uh, um, but maybe those are the four now. So we cut to the um, interesting, not the Royce house, but the Davino's compound.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we have, well, we start with Matt and Alex and Bayless like tagging along just because she's enamored with this pet now, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the Lady Ernessa asks at a certain point, Octa's like, "Why is there an elven warrior downstairs?" And he's like, "I mean, I don't know. I know more than anyone, and I still don't quite understand."
Yeah.
um,
So it's called the Palazzo Divinos. This
I
is where
like that
they're
they're just
gathering.
Italian. I like that it's just
Yeah.
like, well, hey, we like a wine. It's like, okay.
Yeah, there's a house named what Einfassen. There's a lot
Mm,
of there's some pretty clear real world parallels going on here. You can't prove it's an
mhm.
allegory though. um, but we're here in this scene because Octus is here to talk to Lady Aranessa for some secret reason that we don't really know why. Basically, she just asks him, "Were you involved in Thjazi's rescue?" And we don't really know why she wants to know, right? Um,
her, her whole thing is very interesting because she's his estranged wife, Thjazi's estranged wife. And like they got married. She bestowed a pixie upon him on their wedding day. They were apparently like happy and in love because she's, it's a little kind of reverse Princess Diana story for a little bit, and then he declares war on all of the nobility, and apparently that made it hard for them to stay together. But we don't. She came to the funeral. She was super sad. It's very complex. We
yeah.
don't 1,000%. I don't think it's cut and dry how she feels about Thiazi and by extension all of this. Like she didn't want him to die. That was clear. So here we are. Maybe she's on team. Don't like get him out of town, and she wants to know what happened. I don't know what her. Well, we do get. She drops some major lore. We do get the kind of the relationship of the Royces and Octus's clan, their family. The Royces have a house on like the border of Fairy in this like golden orchard. They have a castle there. The doors to Fairy have closed. We keep hearing about that. That has caused Thimble to start aging. There's ramifications to that. In this episode, we find out the doors to Fairy have closed because the realm of death is overflowing with souls because they have nowhere to go for the last 70 years since the
Hell is
gods are
full.
dead. Hell is full and overflowed. It pops out almost almost pierces the heart of Fairy. And I don't know if that's poetic language or potentially like literally true, but Fairy almost gets God. So they're like, nope. And they've shut the gates of Fairy, which has caused their holdings in Fairy or on the edge of Fairy to die. I don't know what sort of magical goodness they were getting from this golden orchard, but clearly that brought them wealth and power. Um, Octus's family, the Taconuses, have the mirror image. They have a place on the borders of death, which explains how, yeah, they're the bad guys, huh?
Yeah, and all of this sort of recontextualizes Thiazi looking for all of these ancient artifacts because they seem death focused, everything that he was looking for, and so we didn't really know what Thiazi was doing. We didn't really know why he was killed. We didn't really know what he was doing to get himself killed, and we didn't really know what his goals were. I'm sure it had something to do with liberation about the five major houses, but we don't exactly know. But it probably had something to do with the gates of Fairy being closed and hell being full, and that being a big problem. If you don't keep your hell running clean and it overflows, then you're going to have leakage, which is a problem.
Seems bad. Seems bad. I don't know what you do
Yeah,
about that. I don't
seems
know who you
bad.
call for that one. And I mean, Danger, we like talk about high fantasy. Like opening, the gods are dead. Like, I mean, we didn't think it was a big deal when we gave them stat blocks, but turns out, whoopsie, now we have to deal with the ramifications of killable gods. Um,
But and it seems like we've got the plot path sort of laid out for the I don't know exactly what the soldiers are going to be eventually up to, but the seekers and the schemers, like it feels like I'm sure the seekers are probably going to be investigating this whatever this is to do with the gates of Fairy. This is Lord of the Rings, throw the ring into the fires of Mordor, and throw the ring into the fire kind of stuff. And then there's also the schemers are going to be in the sort of Andor Game of Thrones plot to do with the houses,
mm,
probably, because there's definitely, and it's all going to be related, clearly. But it feels like we have our major lanes, and what the soldiers are going to be doing, I don't exactly know, but roll an initiative a lot, hopefully, because I want to see that.
it's gone so terribly so far. Um, yeah, I think we're gonna see what's up with Death. I think pretty quickly. Brendan's not pulling like he kind of pulled punches because the Thieves Guild didn't take weapons out. They were literally just like punching them. But they had sneak attack and they're level 3 and they were seriously outnumbered. So like if it had gone all the way, someone would have died. So I think that table I'm going to predict first character death is happening over there.
But we didn't finish the plot. So there was a cliffhanger at the end of the episode. Everything happened very quickly, very fast. A lot happened at the end of the episode. They detected souls in the garden, and then one of those souls just killed Julian's dad right in front of him, ripped his spine right out, and you could see. I went and I watched that scene again today, and you can see most of the people at the table, like they do kind of polite reactions to things. But if you watch Matt Mercer when he's role playing, he's very locked in, no facial expression. He wants to be no distraction at all. Like he wants like he's perfectly still like a cat turning invisible. And you could see when Brandon's describing his father's face, you could see Matt's eyebrows like kind of knit. And like his mouth is perfectly still, but his eyebrows just kind of like knit, like, oh God, what's happening? Yeah, and so in full Game of Thrones, Ned Stark getting chopped, who we thought was going to be a major character,
Mm.
most likely in Julian's world, just gets axed just right away, and then the zombie strike force comes in. Um, and then so they said Octus's brother has the stone, which is implied as the Night Stone, because
Mm.
this is where it seemed like we got confirmation now that the Taconuses bought the loot from the hideout from Casimir because they have the stone. because they go in, the zombie strike force goes into the room with Lady Aranessa and Octus, and they say he holds up the black stone and says, "Put him on the table, open him up, and we'll put this where it belongs." So they're going to shove the stone up his butt, and that's bad, probably.
Or good. I don't know. Maybe I don't know how you become a sorcerer in this world. Good news, it's a suppository. The reason I was hemming and hawing before is because the player characters were talking about how potentially it was the Halavars because Sam's family has holdings and maybe that deed came like that was his family's stronghold to give out. So maybe, and the Halavars and the Draconuses are uneasy allies. I don't think they're working together as much as this. So it could be either. I think you are correct, but going into that scene, I thought the Halavars had purchased Thiazi's stuff, but Grandma does say in the beginning of somewhere in the first episode that the Draconuses called this shot on Thiazi, that Thiazi has to die because of the Draconuses. So maybe, yes, they do have the stone. Are they going to, what happens if they put it inside of Octus? I don't know. That's weird. We'll find out. We'll find out. I think the knitting of eyebrows on Mercer's part is the part of your DM brain is like, okay, what would have to happen by the rules of D&D 5e that someone just walked in and did a Mortal Kombat finishing move, because you can't just do that in a balanced encounter, like it's got to be you just have to feel like, oh man, what would it take for like an incorporeal being, and like, okay, you can break the rules whatever you want, but like he just took his skull out of his head, and like my brain, he doesn't have to describe what happens to your head when your skull's gone. Like my brain auto completes that equation pretty quickly. Awful, terrible. So yeah, I was sitting there like, what is that thing? And they can't. I know they're level 3. They can't fight it. God dang, we did skip over. Speaking of romance novels, the wolf and the elf making eye contact across the city, and the baleful howl and the awakening. Like my heart starts to beat for the first time in forever. Like just this whole, they're on like different sides of, it feels like law and chaos or whatever, God and like godless path, but they're both nature vibes. And therefore these antagonistic forces coming together, that the heat he put beneath that made me think that, okay, they're moving forward together. This is the Seeker's Table, these four. Because I don't know where Valus fits anywhere. So, Chat was saying she's probably a soldier based on like her character art, her makeup. We thought she would be a soldier, which like I was partial to that theory, but like, okay, she's not. She has this connection with Octus. Taisha has this connection with Octus. It seems like they're a group. I don't know where Mercer fits either, really. But like again, Abria's yelled at pretty much everyone so far. But I think the established hatred of Julian and Taisha, there's a lot of meat on that bone, a lot of places that could go. I wouldn't be surprised if they're sitting together for a stretch. So maybe we've seen and now we got the townies, right? The schemers. It's Hal and Azune and Bolaire and Murray seem, I don't know, for party balance, like my min-maxer brain, like they should be at different tables. You need to spread out the arcane, but I don't know. They're a fun pair. They had their own little scene at the museum. I don't know.
Yeah, our soldiers table has no arcane caster. They have a cleric, a warlock, a rogue, and 2 half casters. It's an interesting makeup for a combat-focused party.
Well, Wix, again, we don't know what Wix is. Cleric can do anything, but I think he's
Yeah.
probably a sorcerer? Question mark. But yeah, there's a lot of there's 3 half casters, right? If you go, you got a ranger, you got a warlock, you got a paladin. Or no, is Teor a fighter or a pally? Do we know
Paladin.
this?
Paladin.
He is a paladin, yeah.
But where he has no weapon in his character art, that was a big point of discussion. We don't know what kind of weapon he wields.
Well, there's like a flail, I think. They get his stuff. Like they pull back the they make a joke about it's all beaded curtains here. There's no doors, so Brennan has to make it a curtain, but it's like a soundproof curtain, and they open it up, and there's a shield and I think a flail. But also the point of being a beast man is to, use your claws, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can, and in 2024 you can divine smite on unarmed strikes now, right? I don't think you used to be able to do that.
Yeah, you can pump a smite into your claw bite.
Remember in the UA they were going to allow divine smite on ranged attacks?
Yeah, that
Bad idea.
one is bad by numbers. 2 kind of breaks the class fantasy. Like give that to a ranger. Give me arcane archer and make it good. I don't know. It's just like the pumping of the smite because it's after the fact too. Like you connect first and then you tap into your divine, whatever, overly developed sense of justice.
Let classes have their own thing. Stop giving classes bonus action attacks. That's the monk thing. Bonus action unarmed attack is the monk thing. Stop giving it. They gave it to the new bard. They gave it to like a couple of the new bards. Stop doing that. Let classes have their thing and come up with new ideas for subclasses instead of just borrowing what this class can do. Anyway.
There's enough wizards. Stop making wizard subclasses that just do what other classes do, but better.
Yeah, my last Baldur's Gate 3 run, I did all casters, and I had two wizards, a warlock, and a cleric, and I had a blade singer wizard and a war cleric. They were way tankier than any paladin or blade singer wizard is amazing, and war cleric also amazing.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, clerics. I'm a little more okay with them being so versatile because they don't dominate everything, but like a wizard being the best fighter in the game is just wrong. I don't care what you studied. Like, come on. Oh, cool, bro. You're good at dancing now? All right.
25 armor class by level 8 or 9. It's pretty crazy. Blade singer is just crazy.
Is broken.
Anyway, we should probably wrap this up now since we're just rambling about things in D&D we don't like.
I'm looking forward to the subclasses that come out of Darrington Press in the near future, and I'm looking forward to episode 4, the final episode of the overture. So yeah, catch us on Friday, which is on Friday, and at least for a while, on a mysterious other day of the week too, where we talk about the new Critical Role.
You never know. We're going to keep you guessing, and that's a promise. All right, I'll go ahead and hit the button here. Thanks for watching. We love you. Bye, guys.